Appropriations of novels allow creators to express cultural values over periods of time, and they allow the cultural, social, and political concerns to be voiced. In the original publishing of La Belle et la Bête, the cultural values of the role of women, sexual objectification of women, and male dominance are present. As the story of Beauty and the Beast has been adapted through the eyes of many people from all around the world, the cultural values have shifted and the character portrayals have been changed to fit the contemporary context. The shifts in culture are most evident in The Bloody Chamber, written by Angela Carter in 1979, and the Beauty and the Beast film released in 2017. Through analysing these adaptations, it is clearly shown that the context of the text is an important part in discovering the shifts in cultural values. The Bloody Chamber, written by Angela Carter in 1979, is an exploration of the innocence of women and the exploitation of the female body. The Bloody Chamber is a collection of short stories that explore the sexual objectification of women through the lens of a modern woman, who is an appropriation of the character of Beauty. The voice of Beauty in these short stories differs in each. In The Courtship of Mr. Lion, Beauty is portrayed as a character of innocence, whereas in The Tiger's Bride, Beauty is seen as a slightly more strong-willed, independent character. In The Courtship of Mr. Lion, the character portrayals are similar to those previously conveyed in recent texts. The character of Beauty is ultimately controlled by the men in her life, her father and the Beast. This conforms to the view that men held a higher power over women through male dominance. Men often objectified women and referred to them as possessions. Beauty's father conformed to this stereotype of male dominance and repeatedly states that Beauty is one of his possessions. His beauty, his girl, his pet. The repetition of the pronoun his further emphasizes the fact that the patriarchal society was still evident whilst this series of short stories were written. The word pet further implies the possessive nature of men over women. This highlights the fact that women were still submissive to men, and men still felt the need to convey a sense of ownership over their daughters or wives. The character of the Beast in this short story is conveyed through the figure of a lion, referencing male dominance once again, as Beauty comparatively refers to herself as a lamb, further reflecting upon the submissive portrayals of women that society upheld. This representation of the submissive woman is contrasted in the story of The Tiger's Bride, as the character of Beauty is not submissive to the Beast. The characters differ from their original portrayals, and the audience is presented with characters who do not conform to their expected gender roles. However, the story opens with a clearly evident conveyance of male dominance. My father lost me to the Beast at cards. This reoccurring theme of ownership men felt they had over women is present once again as Beauty is merely sold at the loss of a game of cards played by her father and the Beast. Beauty is repeatedly seen as an object throughout the short story, and her father openly sells her at a game of cards. This shows the low level of worth women were seen as compared to men, as men were able to sell their daughters through male dominance or confine them due to possessive behaviour. This patriarchal viewpoint is repeatedly shown, however the characters do reject these stereotypes at times to convey the contemporary cultural values. As the Beast now holds ownership over Beauty, he openly asks to see her completely naked. My master's sole desire is to see the pretty young lady unclothed, nude without her dress. This further emphasizes and presents the patriarchal male-dominated society that continuously sexually objectifies women. Not only is this male-dominated society presented, but the theme of innocence or loss of innocence is shown through the character of Beauty. The innocence of Beauty is conveyed through the symbol of a white rose. This rose gets blood-smeared and ripped apart, referencing Beauty's lack of control in the act of losing her virginity, as it is shown that men are the dominant figure in most relationships. Ripped petal by petal apart. This metaphor symbolizes Beauty's innocence and conveys it as something that can be so easily destroyed, like that of a delicate flower. The violent imagery in Ripped shows the lack of control women had in sexual relationships, and further reflects upon the theme of male dominance. As the story continues and Beauty begins to reflect upon her sexual encounter with the Beast, the symbol of the rose becomes present once again. My rose had lost all of its petals. This extended metaphor presents the fragility of virginity in reference to the delicateness of a flower. The story implies emphasis upon the virginity of women and gives reference to many biblical allusions which present similar ideas of loss of innocence. All the best religions in the world state categorically that not beasts nor women were equipped flimsy things when the good Lord opened the gates of Eden and let Eve and her familiars tumble out. Carter references the story of Adam and Eve through this biblical allusion in order to convey messages of loss of purity and innocence. This exposes the corruption of religion and deconstructs it as being a central law in society. The Beauty and the Beast film, released in 2017, failed to show the same level of sophistication in feminist ideals than expected. In comparison to Carter's retellings in The Bloody Chamber, the film did not exceed its expectations of a feminist retelling, despite being written somewhat 30 years later, in the third wave of feminism. Instead of creating a film which completely rejects the previous stereotypes and conformities of characters, it added to them and showed the repeated gender constructs. This film was expected to revolutionize the story of Beauty and the Beast by giving the character of Belle third-wave feminist ideals. The character of Belle was said to reject her stereotypical domestic behaviours by having a job, to escape the passivity among women. However, Belle invented an early stage of a washing machine, which further aided to her stereotypical domestic behaviours of a woman in the 17th century. The film conflicts its own ideals that it wanted to achieve and did not achieve the same level of recognition it hoped for. This film follows the main plotline from the 1991 Disney adaptation. Instead of creating a story which complements the new wave of feminism, it rejected it and retorted back to earlier versions of the story. Being in such an important time for the empowerment of women, the film should have at least tried to write something that did not conform to previous conveyances of it. In terms of updating the story for a new generation of young viewers, Beauty and the Beast largely focuses on the characterization of Belle, who has previously been portrayed as an inmate partial to Stockholm Syndrome. Instead, the film aims to show her as a symbol of women's empowerment. The dialogue in this film emphasizes the reflection upon recent sexual politics, as the character of Gaston is a portrayal of a man who is controlled by the patriarchal society and takes pride in it. It's the ones that play hard to get that are the sweetest prey. This film once again objectifies women, as Gaston refers to them as prey, which highlights the male-dominant society. One thing the film did include that is important for women is the portrayal of Belle as a young woman who reads. However, the Disney adaptation previous to this did the same, and the public expected more from the amount of social and cultural freedom the story had. This film had no need to conform to the 18th century societal views of a submissive woman in a patriarchal society, but it did, and seeing as this film was produced in a modern context, it failed to achieve the level of sophistication it intended to reach. Both of these adaptations, although released and written during different time periods, reflect the cultural values of their context. Angela Carter's short stories provide a deeper insight into the feminist ideals and reflect upon the misogyny of men, the role of women, and the objectification of women in society. In some respects, the Beauty and the Beast film did the same, although not to the same level of sophistication. In such a modern world, creators need to provide a role model for women that shows the power and the voice that women now have in a modern world, and need to reject the previous stereotypes of the submissive female.